What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Brand Builder TV. Our goal is to teach you how to explode your personal brand so your business brand follows in 2020, not 2004. And here's the difference between 2004 and 2020 in that commission-based world, in that multi-6 and 7 figure business world. Here's the difference between 2004 and 2020. 2004, it's what you know and who you know. 2020, it's what you know, it's who you know, but just as important, who knows you. So I'm excited to introduce our next guest for the Brand Builder TV, Whitney Sewell. He's deep into the commercial real estate world. I'm going to let him share a little bit, a 30,000 foot view on where he came from, where he's at today, and where he sees himself going. And we're going to tie everything in. So the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Dave. It's an honor to get to meet you and to be on your show as well. And, I guess a little about me, and I know you can ask questions and we can dive into as much as you want. And I know you like to do that. And so, grew up in a one stoplight town in Kentucky. There was absolutely, there's almost nothing there, but it's a great little community. There was, if it wasn't for this big lake that was there, I'm not sure the town would exist, so, businesses couldn't make it there. There's very few places, mostly gas stations are what survives. And so, but a great place to grow up. I joined the military and spent a year in Iraq. Obviously I just passed a lot of years there. We're going this 30,000 foot view. So spent a year in Iraq. I come home and trying to figure out what in the world am I going to do? What am I qualified to do? Right. Used to being in the military, the uniform, all those things. And I quickly decided, okay, being a police officer is like the next thing for me. And so got hired with Kentucky State Police. There was 5 positions for 1,200 applicants for 5 positions. I was blessed to have one of those. And about 2 years in or so, got married and discovered very quickly that this is not the most family-friendly position and not what was best long-term. I enjoyed working the road as an officer. However, $35,000 a year, eventually doesn't get you very far. And so, started looking for what am I going to do to supplement my business or my income at the time. And so quickly found real estate, bought a couple triplexes, made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot the hard way, of course. But then became a federal agent. That moved us to Virginia. So we moved and that was a real blessing in itself. But my wife and I then were exposed to the adoption process and had never considered adoption. But a pastor was talking about it one night and on our way home, we just couldn't think of a good reason why we wouldn't adopt. And I'll tell you why this is part of the story in a minute. But we couldn't think of a good reason why we wouldn't adopt a child. And so we kept talking about it. We had never talked about it before. Within a week, we turned our application in to adopt from Ethiopia. 2 years later, our son came home from Ethiopia, and we just now finished our 3rd adoption process since that time. And it's a long roller coaster. It's extremely expensive. And so, through all this, I was still pushing small multifamily and single family, thinking that was the way to go. That was just all my eyes could see. I couldn't see that there was a bigger world out there at that time, And then I was exposed to the syndication business. And that's ultimately what I'm doing is real estate syndication. But that just means we're putting a lot of people together. A lot of people are investing in a larger product for a bigger return. Ultimately, that's what we're doing. And so
the ultimate leverage, right?
That's right. That's right. And so we are, then we learned about the syndication business. And so then I found out that I actually could buy large apartment buildings for, many millions of dollars, where before I would have said, no, that's not possible. Maybe 20 years from now. But, I discovered that I really like building teams and working with professionals as opposed to looking for more tenants and toilets. And, and by, going through the adoption process and the struggle of that financially, and then also just, the difficulty of scaling, single family homes and things like that. So, this is the business for me. And so we jumped into the syndication business and started a daily podcast where I'm interviewing everybody, and their brother in the business, and obviously educating ourselves and reaching investors and just growing our knowledge base and moving forward as fast as we can. And now we've done, we've been investing over 1,000 units. We have about 250 now under management, and we're just looking for the next deal and moving forward all the time.
Man, I love it. First of all, thank you for your service, both in the military and in the blue uniform. My ex-father-in-law was a New Jersey State Trooper for 30 years. So, First Force Recon of Vietnam. My dad was 82nd Airborne in World War II. So thank you so much for your service. Number two, my bio and my beginning bio, and I'm going to share this because of what you just shared, was put up for adoption at birth and in an orphanage in North Philly for the first 18 months of my life, and adopted by two amazing human beings. So,
wow,
you got my
what
attention
a connection.
on that.
Yeah.
You definitely got my attention on that. And there's some really cool questions I want to ask you just from that 30,000 foot view you gave us. How did you actually? What made you get into real estate, though? What made you even think about that?
It was the, like having such a low paying position, honestly, with the state police, it was just like, how are we going to grow? How are we going to get anywhere? Well, and I'll tell you, so, we wanted my wife to be able to be at home when we had children. At that time, we didn't have any. And for her to quit her job at the time, and what I was making, it was going to be almost impossible. It wouldn't have been, I won't say it's impossible because you can make it, but it would have been very difficult. And I was already working every night, weekend, and holiday, and most of all the overtime I could get, and it was just going to be very difficult. And so that's where I just started searching. Like what else? I wasn't exposed to entrepreneurs growing up. I wasn't exposed to this possibility in real estate. But at this time, I started hunting and found out that a lot of people have created wealth in real estate. And I thought, okay, that's something I need to learn about, and I need to push towards that.
I love it. I love this because I'm a big believer that no matter it's not what you do, but how you do it. And it's always the same recipe, just different ingredients. And here's what I mean. Is just what you shared there. Let me go deeper with the audience and take the mystery out of it. When your why becomes big enough, you can break through those fear barriers. But when your why becomes bigger than you become unstoppable. So your why actually became bigger than you, right? It's your wife, it's your family, it's getting to that next level, everyone together. So you were able to break through those fear barriers, and I'm sure you had plenty, right? And
yes.
So what I call life's boot camps, right? You made it.
I love that.
Through the other side of those life.
And I'll tell you, like our why has changed a little bit. At that time, obviously, it was, we need more income just for our family, so I'm not having to work every bit of overtime, but never really imagining it becoming this whole other career, at that time. And obviously, that was quite a few years ago. It was 10 years ago now. But, now, obviously things have changed. And because of the adoption picture, and my wife and I are very passionate about adopting, and we want to keep adopting and helping other families adopt. We've committed half of our profits to our nonprofit that we're creating, where we can help other families financially through that process, because it can be $40,000 to $60,000 to adopt. And it's just a real shame that expense is there, and we want to help alleviate some of that burden, if not all of it.
I love that. Make sure you share us a link, right? And we'll put it in the notes for your nonprofit. And it's interesting. I'm again, I'd love for you to share your perspective and your thoughts on how important the evolution of your why has been in your success.
Yeah. So, evolution, the evolution of my why, it had to change, right? Cause I left the state police, that, the whole thing changed. And then when it became something like you mentioned, it became something a lot bigger than just me. Mm-hmm. Right. It became more, all these families that, everybody in the real estate industry that listens to our show knows that we've adopted and know that we're trying to help families adopt. And so now I get people contacting me that says, hey, Whitney, my wife and I have thought about adopting, and we'd really like to know more about that, or love to talk to you about it. And so my wife and I then we'll schedule a call with them just to answer their questions, whatever. but now it's become bigger because now we can help that family and another family and another, and then ultimately we're helping another child or another child and another child. And we've just seen, how our family's been blessed by, 3 children now that we've been able to adopt. And I mean, Lord's been very gracious to us, and it's not an easy road through that adoption process, but it's very worthwhile. And we're thankful that why is a big part of us now and helping others do the same.
And I'm here to tell you that I'm so thankful that there are people like you and your wife and my mom and dad that are willing to open their lives up and look even in that direction, because who knows, that I could have went in a whole nother direction. So very, very grateful, and I've been very, very blessed. So I love that. So let's do some practical things here now with what you do. If somebody wanted to make a career change, if somebody wanted to get into that real estate niche on what you're doing, what would you suggest?
There's a few key things so like the syndication business is a little different, and it's kind of a new thing that's kind of being promoted now. Even that word, or even those words together, real estate syndication is kind of a new
I never
thing.
heard of
okay,
it. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but it's not a commercial. Business is not new. People have been buying apartment buildings forever. However, the way we structure it now is a little different, and it's even some law that changed in 2013 that allowed a lot of this to happen. And so, what we do now is ultimately we are, building a brand, just like you're helping people do. We're going to build a brand, connect with investors, and we're going to talk to them about the deals that we're doing. And there's a lot of legal things that you need to know about how to do that correctly. But ultimately, we're connecting investors to a deal, let's say to a 100-unit apartment building or 200-unit, whatever, to a property that has a problem. It's either under market rent, it's mismanaged, there's some type of issue that our team can fix. Okay. And so, and ultimately we can raise the value by fixing those problems and raising the income. Okay. But to get into this business, ultimately you need to educate yourself. You need to educate yourself the best you can. And I tell everybody, you need a mentor. You need somebody that's been there and done it, because you're going to mess up. And in this business, I'm taking usually at a minimum $50,000 investments from people, and this is their hard-earned money.
Yeah.
And I mean, you better believe I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I'm delivering everything that I've projected that I'm going to deliver. I won't say promised, because there's no promises in investing, right?
No.
So it's I'm going to make certain that I'm going to deliver. And so you need a mentor, though. You need somebody that's been there and done that, and I mean, it's going to push you so much further down the road, so much faster if you're willing to be patient, right? And not jump in too quick, but be willing to step out there, but educate yourself, find a mentor, and then start connecting and networking with people that are in the industry. And I mean, then things start to happen when you start meeting people that are ahead of you.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's that massive effect of action becomes magical, right? The people
Yes.
and the circumstances start to appear in your life. Now, do you offer that mentoring as well, or your company?
So I don't have a formal coaching program. What we have done is more like bring people in for like a mentoring, but it's not like an official coaching program. And so we would be open to that, depending on people's skills and what, that it's a good fit.
Yeah. So on the job training really is
Right.
what you
That's
provide,
right.
which is really the best training there is out there. And when you say your company gets these buildings ready, do you do the construction of it? Is that what you provide?
So I mean, I would be like the operator. I would be the one that's going to find this property.
Okay.
I would be the one that's going to find the investors, and then I'm going to put the property under contract. I'm going to close on it, and then I'm going to create the business plan. I'm going to find the third-party management company that's going to manage it every day. I'm going to interview them and make
Yeah.
sure they're the professionals and they have the experience and all those things. I'm going to find the contractors and make sure they're the ones I want to work with. And then, then it's my job to really orchestrate all this and make sure that property is performing per our business plan. So I'm not managing it on a day basis. I mean, I am in a sense, but not the day-to-day activities.
Yep.
I'm going to hire, a professional management company and professional contractor and things like that.
That is tremendous value. I mean, you're the one-stop shop, right? So if I'm an investor and there's questions or there's something going on, I'm coming to you, right, and saying, hey, where are we at with this?
That's right.
And I assume that you just give maybe monthly, quarterly, annual reports, and then meetings and things like that. But just having you, wow, that's great value. I love
It's
that.
an avenue that most people don't even know exists. Like they think like the stock market or mutual funds is the only thing they can invest in, but you can actually own real estate and get the benefits and the tax benefits of owning real estate, by investing in a syndication like we're talking about, and actually, I mean, own a portion of this building, and get the benefits and get distribution. So then you get monthly paychecks, monthly cash, your return, and then also monthly updates. And so we're communicating with you at a minimum on a monthly basis, letting you know what's happening and how the property's performing.
So what's your definition of syndication?
So, I mean, at a, I guess, elementary level, it's really just getting a lot of people together, a lot of people investing together, bringing all these investors together to invest in a larger deal that you wouldn't normally be able to do by yourself.
Yeah. And then, and you coordinate that. That's amazing. That's amazing value. How long you been doing it?
The syndication business, just a couple of years. We'd done smaller multifamily and single family just since 2009. And before the light bulb finally came on there, I learned about the syndication business and jumped into that. So,
and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I would think too that if you're going to leverage to that level, meaning the investors, but also your skill set, which is leveraging. If anybody doesn't understand that, they're wrong, right? That's right. Ultimate leveraging, right? So by leveraging both of them, if I'm the small investor in this big building, right, I would feel like I'm much more insulated from any downturn in the economy versus the single family or the fourplex or the duplex, things like that. Would that be correct?
I would believe that. I mean, there's people that would argue against it, but when you think about if you got a single family home and it's vacant, well, that's 100% vacant. I mean, you are paying all the bills,
right.
As the owner, you're paying for everything.
Yep.
But if we've got a 100-unit complex, if we have 10 people move out, well, we still got 90 units that are full, and,
right.
and most of the time even at that point, we're still paying distributions just like normal and covering cash flow. I mean, it's, we're going to be conservative enough that we can account for things like that as well. But in a downturn, it's going to be in how we bought the property. Right. We're going to make certain that we're buying for cash flow and not appreciation. We want a cash flowing property. And then debt is how we structure our debt is it's almost the most important piece behind how you buy the property. But so we're going to have long-term debt. So a lot of times these properties are what we call a 5-year hold, meaning in 5 years, we're going to plan to sell it. And so, but we may have 10-year debt, so let's say our debt may be for 10 years. And so that way, if there is a downturn, let's say in year 4, we're not made to sell. If we only had 5-year debt, but we just had a downturn, we're not made to sell right then. And so we could keep it till year 7 if that's what was best. So we have good debt. So we're not made to sell the property at a time we're not ready to sell or we don't feel is best. Okay?
And how do you handle that when you have so many different investors, when you feel it is time to sell, or who makes that decision?
We will, and we'll be watching the market and things like that. And so, like a property we just purchased, we'll take the better scenario there, and like we just closed on 180 units 3 months ago, and that property, what happened, like it was what we call 20% loss to lease. So there's a 20% difference in the rents, in the actual rents, local rents, and what this building was actually renting for. Okay. And so we put it under contract, but by the time we even closed, just by working with the management company, we increased those rents, the units that had turned, we had gained 15% of that. Okay. And that's a big deal because we're started increasing the income. And so we've increased the value of the property before we've even closed on it. Right. And so, in some of those units, we underwrote those. We said, okay, these units are probably going to get, let's say, $995, when we're done with the remodel. They're already getting like $1,125. So it's already overperforming. And in that case, our goal is to double investors' return, double their money within 5 years. Okay.
Oh, okay. I was
And
going to
so,
ask you. Okay.
yeah, so our goal is to double their money, and we can talk about that too, like the returns and stuff and that are common. And so, we hope to double their money, but in this case, if this keeps going this way, we're liable to double it by the end of year 3. And if we do that, then we'll go ahead and exit. We would go ahead and sell that property then.
Okay. Okay. Is that
So,
that's
that's kind of
usually
the,
like the if you get to that double mark, that's when you say, okay, time to flip it and move on.
yeah, potentially.
Okay.
If the market was still just going strong, and
Yep.
we may have a call with the investors and kind of get a feel for how everybody feels about it, and would they rather hold the property another year, or would they rather go ahead and exit?
Let me ask you this. Because now you really have my curiosity, right? It's because it's what a great concept and great value. Let's just say there's, just for conversation's sake, there's 10 investors, right, on one property, and you're getting close to that 5-year mark, and you're right where your numbers are and everything else, and 3 of them don't want to sell, right? What do you do? Is it majority or?
No, we are the operators,
Okay.
so ultimately it's our decision.
Okay.
And I can briefly talk about like the structure of how that works. So like an investor is what we call a limited partner or passive investor. I mean, they are completely passive. Ultimately they don't have a say if we sell or if we keep the property. Okay. Because I can't call 20 people and ask about paint colors,
No, that's
So
what, yeah.
yeah. And that's why you would be investing with us, because of, us being able to operate this type of property, And so, at that time, we would like to get a consensus, or, we would hope that everybody would be on board, but also we're going to be expressing why we feel the way we do. And we're going to be listening to, your opinion, and you may say something that says, that makes me feel a different way, and say, okay, well, okay, that makes sense. Maybe we should consider that. And so it's not that we're closed off to it, but you're a passive investor for a reason, and we're on the active side for a reason.
Yep. It makes total sense. And again, I love it because it's the ultimate leverage, right? It's you're having my money work for me, and I don't have to be there, which we know is the definition of passive, right?
That's right.
And you can do other things. And I love the fact that you guys are always looking for the next deal, right?
That's right. You don't have to spend time finding a deal or managing it or doing any of that.
Love it. I love it. Let's get a little bit into my world now, the branding, right?
Yes.
And the marketing, and how important that is in 2020 versus 2004. First of all, because I'm such a big believer and fan that, there's 2 different types of stages that you need to brand from: physical and digital. And the digital just keeps exploding. Because you're so deep into the podcasting, how much has that helped your brand?
Oh boy.
Right?
Like every week I get calls from people that say, how do I start podcasting? Or even more so, like, was it worth it? I mean, all the time, Whitney, was it worth it to do a podcast? And then I also get questions, was it worth it to do a daily show? Because it is a ton of work. I mean, I don't downplay that. It is so much work, and it's caused me to build great systems and better systems and hire people, and to make all this happen. And so, but let me tell you, so like a year ago, nobody in this industry knew who I was. I mean, like, at conferences or at a big level, I mean, a lot of people knew me, but not thousands of people, you know? And so a year later, I go to a conference, everybody knows who I am. And that means a lot. I mean, everybody knows who I am. And so, I've got to speak on lots of stages now because of the podcast. I've got to meet some of I've interviewed over 370 people over the last year or less. And now, so many of those people have been doing this, 30 years, and are way ahead of me. And guess what? Now they're people that I can reach out to when I have a question or when I've run into something that I haven't seen before. And so I've just grown my network just drastically, very fast. And I mean, I can't recommend enough that, almost any entrepreneur should have a podcast. And I'll say this. So like in my business, it's important that we're connecting to people who are business owners and high net worth individuals who need real estate. I mean, and a lot of times they don't even know the benefit of them owning real estate and the returns that they could be having, and the tax benefits. They don't know a lot of times, but they need that benefit. And this is the way that I can reach them. is through a podcast. And this is the way that they can get to know me. And so it happens often that when I get on a call with a new investor, I'll say, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your goals. I want to make sure that they understand, obviously, risk in investing, and no different if you're investing in the stock market or, with a financial advisor, he's going to ask you about your risk tolerance and things like that. Well, I want to understand, what your investment levels are, and things like that. And so
I love it. And I think you're going to agree with me 100% here. I'll be honest with you, Whitney. I have never been around a tool, and I'm going to use tool as a lack of a better term, to connect on such a level. Networking meetings, even physical stage, right, is still it does not go as deep as a podcast when you have a guest and you're a host, or vice versa.
Right.
It's like almost you're creating lifelong friends,
Yeah. And I was going to say, when those investors are on the call with me, I ask them those questions and they'll end up talking the whole time. Like, often this happens. And at the end, they're like, well, I'll have to get to another call, and they'll be like, well, I didn't let you talk at all, but that's okay. I feel like I already know you.
Yeah.
And that's what, it's so crucial. They feel like they already know me, but it's because they've listened to me every day for the last year, on the podcast.
And let me ask you this. Since you've done so many, how many opportunities have you gotten to be on somebody else's podcast?
A lot. I've probably been interviewed, I don't know, 30, 40 times.
Right? That you wouldn't have probably
that's right.
know about.
I've been able to get into masterminds and all kinds of things like that would not have happened if it wasn't for the podcast.
I love it, because I that's such a big message for me is it's what you know, it's who you know, but then who knows you. And this is a medium that is just absolutely unbelievable, really. So you do one show a day?
Every day.
Wow.
So, I batch them. I'll record,
Sure.
a lot in one day. And then obviously they're scheduled to go out.
Yeah, that's great. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that I didn't hit on that you want to share with the audience?
There's all kinds of stuff we could talk about. Like about branding and all kinds of stuff. And I would say, like, podcasting is such a quick way to build your brand. I can't stress it enough. Happy to help somebody, get started in podcasting, but yeah, I can't stress it enough. And invest in real estate. You need to own real estate.
You know what? You can't argue those two comments, right? Those two statements, because they're so factually true. Real quick, too, I want to ask you your thoughts on branding and marketing in 2020, right, versus 2004. I'm a big believer that it's flip-flopped, that your personal brand now, when you can explode your personal brand, your business brand follows. I'm just such a believer in that in the world we live in today versus how it was back in the day. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So promoting your personal, like just your name and who you are. Yes. I can't stress it enough. And that's actually something I didn't do very well. I still haven't done very well as far as just being more, on Facebook Live, just whatever we're doing. Like, I forget to do that still now, just so like people can see me in the thick of it, and get to know me a little better, as opposed to just the business or just my interviews, in the podcast. And so I can't agree more that, like, people need to see, like, me personally, or my personal brand, and yes, and the business is going to follow. Like, the more they get to know me, the more they see me in it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because it really comes back to trust. Right.
Yes,
and little things that people don't think about, or they don't connect themselves with this is, I'll give you a great example, is like, I do keynotes around the country as well. So my name is Dave DALEY, the Monster Motivator. Right. So people connect. And I'm a big believer that branding 101 is never let them forget you. And if you look at the mainstream, Dr. Phil, and I'm going to use some examples. Dr. Phil, Dog the Bounty Hunter, people that have a little nickname tied in with their name is so. Here, a great example. I was doing a mastermind. I'm a speaker at a 3-day event here in Southern California in November. Long story short, there's 15 speakers, and we were doing a mastermind meeting. And so some people that were out of town came in Zoom, right? And one of the girls introduced herself with her name. And the other girl on Zoom said, oh, you look familiar, and then she used her nickname, right? And she goes, oh, that's right, I remember. You know, it's like stories sell, right? And data is important, but stories sell, and they create that foundation. It's same with your personal brand. When people can feel comfortable and wrap their brain around that, man, it explodes. And I'm going to go a little further on this, Whitney, I'm a big believer that your vulnerability becomes your credibility. So those struggles that you had, right, figuring all this out, falling down, getting back up, when you share that on a consistent basis, it creates a connection, which now creates a trust that just can't be broke. So
yeah.
that's
love it. No, that's all. I love that quote too. I love that quote. That's awesome.
The vulnerability becomes your credibility. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, when I go on stage and I hand out my intro, it's Dave DALEY, Monster Motivator, built and sold 3 companies in 3 different industries, but also crashed one to the ground. And that's what people want to know, right? What happened? How did that happen? And for me, again, it's that window of time. There's not a university in this world that could have taught me what that taught me. And you touched on it just a little bit, because we did that 30,000 foot view on some of your tougher times, right? And figuring this out and getting through, and the money you spent, you and your wife spent on adopting, and just, again, figuring it out as you go, weeding through all that, which I call wisdom versus knowledge.
Love it. Yeah, that's right. You got to have those hard times, like getting through that hard time is in finding it, getting to the other side. Like you've learned so much, and it's only then that you're able to do it better the next time, or improve and improve and improve.
It really is. And let me edify what you do, because I'm a huge fan, because of what you've been through, because of what you experienced, and because of the resources that you had to build, right, to not only survive but thrive in your industry. That alone is unspeakable value, because now I'm putting my money in your hands, but this is your world, this is your wheelhouse, these are your resources. No pressure, I'm just right? But that's huge value in itself, to be able to have a one-stop shop. I think it's genius. I think it's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
I love it. I want to learn more about it, for sure. And definitely looking forward to staying connected. Anything before we jump off that you want to share that I might have missed, or anything?
I mean, I think it was a great show. I've really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit, and the adoption connection. That's incredible. And I can't agree enough about just the branding and podcasting and social media and your personal brand, all those things that you're promoting. I mean, is so crucial. I've seen it personally. And I would say a year ago, I had no clue about any of this stuff. I mean, like, I knew I needed a podcast, but like, I got it started. I had no clue about branding. I had no clue about like how to explode a podcast. I just knew that if I do it 7 times a week and everybody else is doing it once a week, I'm probably going to get better results. So, it's just willing to work harder, I think, at first, and then we built better teams and got smarter and those things, but it takes time. It takes time, just like you're talking. It wasn't easy. It's still not easy, but, it takes time, and it gets better and gets better and gets better, but you got to step out there and make it happen.
I love it. And I want to make sure people understand this. We're so inundated now with the word hustle, right? And grind, hustle and grind, hustle and grind. There's a big difference between hustling, grinding, massive action versus massive effective action, which I call inspired action. When it becomes inspired action, you don't fizzle out, right? You don't get burnt out, because there's a flame inside you that's lit. And again, that maps back to your why, and understanding that as you grow and evolve, so will your why. So I love it. I love that you have the entrepreneurial DNA, right? It's jump off the cliff and figure out how to fly on the way down.
That's right.
And
That's the way it feels sometimes.
right.
Yeah.
It's no, that's the DNA. That's
Yeah.
when you know you have that X factor. So, and you're also going to share in the notes website, social media platforms, and anything you
Yeah,
want
I'm
to
happy
share.
to put that out, whatever. Happy to, lifebridgecapital.com is how anybody can find me or
Okay.
find our company. Personally, I mean, I even like to put out my phone number, 540-585-4338. People can call or text and we'll make it happen.
Awesome. And so any of those links, any of that information, share it with me. We'll get it over to my VA. We'll get that in the notes because I know there's going to be a lot of people wanting to reach out. And
Sounds great.
I know that you're a busy guy, and I want to thank you for taking the time and really sharing. Oh, you taking us behind that black curtain?
Yeah, no, my pleasure. I'm honored to be on your show. Great to meet you as well. It's an honor.
Awesome. So, guys, thank you so much. We're going to have all the information to reach out to Whitney, get a little more information on his company, what he does, what he provides in the notes sections. And we're also going to be putting out social media clips as well on this show. And again, branding in 2020 versus 2004, what you know, and who knows you. That's going to be the key. So thanks again so much, and thank you so much, and have an awesome day.
You too. Thank you.